I'm gonna make you think in this. And I got a solution to a problem. Online, everybody seems to be confused, but it's very simple. So I'm sure you've heard of the conspiracy theory of hipsters or people having cell phones or things of the past. Like people in the 1950s, 1920s, Egyptians, whatever, having cell phones. Now, the Egyptian stuff is completely fake. If you do your research, that's easy. But the real photographs and videos and movies which depict people using cell phones before any such cell phone was invented, it's very easy to explain. Walkie-talkies were out for at least 20 or more years before the cell phone. Maybe, no, way more than that. Yeah, way more. Before there was ever a real tower built, there was radio waves. And as long as there's radio waves and small devices that can go two ways, kind of like a ham radio, then you can have walkie-talkies that fold, fit in your pocket. Husband and wife can, one person can be in the car while one person's in the factory. Like there's one famous video that's been reused in magazines and movies and shows and on YouTube and online as proof that there's time travel because some lady comes out of the DuPont factory with a cell phone. But all I see is her talking into something that is square and the size of a maybe 1990s or 2000 cell phone. This is like a 1950s video, 50 years prior, maybe around there. Well, there was walkie-talkies, there was ham radios, and it matches the size. I even think I see the antenna sticking out. There's multiple of these magazine articles, same thing, showing a picture of somebody holding a square device talking on it way before cell phones were invented. But walkie-talkies are radio waves. It's no different than a ham radio. Ham radios have been around since what? Truck drivers were using them way back in the day. In the 70s, I think all truck drivers had them, and there was no cell phones. But there was plenty of walkie-talkies. People, I mean, I remember in the 90s, every kid wanted, had a walkie-talkie. In the 90s, there wasn't cell phones everywhere. There was walkie-talkies. Some of the adults had big bricks, but they weren't worth it. The smart people had walkie-talkies, and you only need two people for that. Well, that was a new gadget. The walkie-talkie was a pretty fancy gadget when a lot of these black and white pictures and videos were taken. Maybe a husband and wife just wanted to videotape this cool new device called a handheld walkie-talkie. Maybe it was even called the husband and wife walkie-talkie set for Christmas. Who knows? But there's very plausible explanations for most things in life. Even visions, like in comas and patients who have near death experiences, there are very logical reasons for this. Maybe God, the all knowing and all creating, maybe it's just one energy. Maybe there are multiple billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of infinite universes, and there's one energy holding it all together called God. And then He creates anything He wants and around you and just gives you the freedom to choose between good or evil. And maybe there's more than what we just know. Because we do project the world out of our mind. We perceive the world out of our mind. And God is inside each and every one of us and can project Himself around us. So maybe a near death experience is just a reconnection to this other thing. But everything, when fully asked question after question after question, if you find ways to get more into it and spend more time understanding, because understanding is a great thing to have. Wisdom, understanding. And you don't get understanding without asking questions. So keep that in mind. I only thought of this while trying to solve a very simple thing I saw real quick. I didn't even spend 5 minutes thinking of it. I've seen maybe five pictures and maybe two videos where some guy tries to explain a walkie-talkie means time travel. That's not the case. We need to ask questions. And if the person's no longer alive, then we can't assume that because somebody's holding a square thing, then that means they're a time traveler. That is completely crazy. And this is the problem in today's society. They don't want to ask questions. They don't want to listen. They don't want to have faith. Instead, they want to spin these fantasies like time travelers, or that people are really crazy in society and need to be over medicated. A lot of these people are way, way, way too many drugs. Like this Jasmine I know, she was so anti drug. She was so anti anything. No pot, no pills, not even nothing. No, no, she didn't need Benadryl, nothing. She was anti-pot, anti-smoking, anti-all that stuff. But after having drugs forced upon her for multiple years, they broke her. And this is the problem in society. These people don't know how to handle this. They don't. And there's so much systematic abuse and systematic failures, total civil rights violations, human right violations, and we're about to start making kids work without a choice or without actually having any education involved. We're about to cut all funding so that the rich are no longer overseen so they can cheat on their taxes. We've already cut funding to just about every program that existed back in the 90s, 80s, 70s. We have 60% of the population is screwed. 20% of the population is woohoo, we getting triple rich. And then there's a middle that's trying to make it up. You got another little, I shouldn't say middle, they're a little chunk, because you got 60% of the population really fucked. You got some people dying. You got other people living in tents. That's a good, like, 20% of the population is in tents now. You got maybe another 10% of the population dying off, like 1% at a time. You just got so much of it at the bottom, and then the people like single mothers that are sucking or getting. A lot of the people surviving at the bottom right now, I see, are getting help from somebody they know, upper class, somebody who owns something, and a lot of times it causes the whole thing to be destroyed. If the one person that has money doesn't have enough of it, and you got a single mother who's working at McDonald's, who has a one bedroom that costs $2,000, and she's only getting paid minimum wage, and she's working 40 hours, she's going to have a problem with daycare, rent, electric bill. She's going to have a problem with everything. And then when she goes to get benefits, depending on her start, depending on if she's an orphan, depending on where she came from, she might not get anything. Like if she's an orphan from St. Anne's in Massachusetts, she probably will not get a dime. But if she comes from a wealthy, well-off family that's willing to invest, and maybe she gets some government support. But even then, they might take her baby away. There's so much fucked up shit going on today. Really, really, really bad. There's a lot of stupid stuff, but a lot of people I talk to are so scared for society, they're not willing to bring another kid into this world. I hear it all the time. I would say about a good 60% of people my age tell me they're not going to have children because the world's too fucked up. Until the world's better, then they'll have children. But that's a problem. If the greedy motherfuckers who are willing to ruin the earth and treat people shitty and spin stories and not have faith in one another and act like like when they act like I'm some evil guy. I'm literally got an old man, sex offender, who tried to rape me one time while I was unconscious because he's senile. I literally work with a 50-year-old mentally disabled man who has the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, and I got him into housing. I literally have dealt with like 5 other really mentally disturbed people. I literally let my father walk all over me and gave him forgiveness 100 times. I've been super religious back even as a child. The only reason why anybody might think I'm some evil or some harmful, scary person is if they read my mother and father's bullshit. If they feed into my mother's and father's fantasies, then yes, they can spin whatever they want. I'm sure they can. But this is the problem in this scary world. I have had multiple times where, like, an officer lights me on fire, and let's say I went to the police department and tried to report it. That an officer of the law lit me on fire on property that I had permission to be on by somebody else, including the owner. I was one of the only people with the owner's actual permission. The other jackasses did not have permission. Anyways, I was lit on fire, and when I came out burning, there was an officer of the law, going away laughing. Now, let's say I reported that at the police station. How do you think that would go? Do you think they would actually take the report? Do you think if I went to the hospital and told them what happened, how do you think that would be spun? That I was trespassing and I fell asleep and lit myself on fire? Or how about, how else would they spin it? I was just trespassing in general and they don't know what happened. The officer would be left out completely. Or let me give you another one that I just frickin' love. They find you on the ground, right? But if you're homeless, they try to bring it as a drug thing before they even check what it is. Like, I knew a 69-year-old. Now, he was completely sober for 2 years. He had chest pains, so I called 911 for him, and they made it a drug thing on scene right away. When he got out of the hospital, he started yelling at me because he said they ended up bringing all this drug stuff on his sheet, even though he was completely sober for 2 years. And there was no drugs on his paperwork. There was nothing. Well, they've done the same thing to me before, too. It's very common. Very, very common. If you have a heart attack, but yet you look like you're homeless, you might not make it. And this is the problem in society today. You got evil just prospering in and out of everywhere. And you got the people who are supposed to be good, like medical professionals and police officers, making assumptions and feeding in the evil fantasies. I watched it myself. It's hurting me today. My mother spun a fantasy, and now my medical professionals are acting evil, inappropriate, and making assumptions, then going along with those assumptions. And the more they do that, the more I get hurt. I mean, they have me crawling across traffic. There must be a lot of assumptions for that to happen.